Patrick Musole. He is Executive Director of the Zambia Land Alliance. Good morning to you, sir. Welcome to the Hot Seat.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you, Chisha.
All right, thank you very much for being our guest today. Now, you should know that we're live on our sister station. That is Kwitu FM 93.3, also live on Kanele FM in Lundazi. We're also live on the Hot FM Zambia Facebook page, so feel free to leave a comment there as we go on with our conversation. If you have a question or a contribution, you can leave it in the comment section and we'll relay that to our guest. So, Mr. Musole, let's begin our conversation. First of all, for anyone who doesn't know, tell us about the Zambia Land Alliance and its objectives.
Thank you so much. The Zambia Land Alliance is a network of non-government organizations that are focused on land issues. Currently, we have 7 national members that are part of the alliance, and our objectives is to advocate for land rights, land tenure security, and of course sustainable land use. Now we know that for these things to be achieved, we need to deal with the laws, and so we advocate for laws that support the achievement of these goals. So we are into the space of land advocacy to ensure that the laws that we enact are strong enough to protect people's land rights, are strong enough to ensure that the available land is sustainably utilized, and to ensure that people that have legal ownership or access to land are protected. They have tenure security. And that's what we've been doing since 1997 when we were established as an alliance.
And just from your point of view, how strong are laws on land in this country?
I must say that the land laws in this country are not strong enough to protect people's rights. They are not strong enough to promote sustainable land use. We actually have lots of loopholes in our legal framework, in our legal system. And it's for that reason that the government, and of course with all stakeholders, including all of us, worked hard to come up with a national lands policy, which was put in place in 2021 to try and realign all the land-related laws so that the laws that relate to agriculture, that relate to forestry, that relate to mining, can speak to one another or speak to each other. Because as you know, that land has so many uses. People in mining depend on land. People in infrastructure depend on land. People in agriculture depend on land. Conservation, forestry, everything depends on land. And so we have different laws that we are not speaking to each other and being managed by different ministries and departments. And so the National Lands Policy was intended to harmonize the various laws so that they can speak to each other, so that they can integrate their interventions in order to ensure that land is properly utilized. And since the policy was enacted, we have seen some legal reforms that have been happening, especially in the mining sector. We have seen some attempt. There is a process right now going on to amend the Lands Act of 1995. That process is not yet complete. And until these processes are completed, our laws remain fragmented and also with lots of loopholes which are being exploited at the moment. The biggest gap that we have right now is customary land, which is the bigger chunk of land in this country. Originally, at independence, it was estimated at 94% of all land was customary. Right now, because of the massive conversions that have been happening, that percentage has reduced, I think, projected to as low as 50-something, probably 55 or so. So that process, that land remains unlegislated, which means there's no law on customary land. regulating customary land. And customary land is governed according to people's cultures, traditions, norms, which are very different. So people's culture in Eastern Province is not the same as cultural norms in Western Province and Northwestern and so forth. So that becomes a challenge from the national perspective when you have this this kind of diversity in usage. And so we have a lot of issues going on under customary land, a lot of what we call illegalities happening under customary land, which is not helping our land rights and land use.
Okay. So I know you've touched on some of them, but tell us, what are some of the key issues affecting land governance in Zambia today?
I think the one that I've just talked about is lack of a legal framework governing the bigger chunk of land in the country. There was an effort, I think about 10 years ago, to come up with a customary land bill to try and administer or govern customary land governance. That is not in place. And so we have a big challenge there. Then we have the Lands Act, which is the principal land law in this country. That was enacted in 1995. That law is currently undergoing review and amendment to align it to the current realities and the needs of the country. That law was very, very shallow. It didn't speak to customary land. It didn't say much about, for example, investment and the like. And as you are aware, Chisha, we have a lot of investor interest in this country that are acquiring large chunks of land. And that acquisition is not properly regulated, resulting into displacement of local people and all sorts of challenges. So outdated law, which of course I'm glad to say that law is being reviewed, and hopefully we can have the amended act adopted soon. Then we have poor implementation. Even for the laws that we have, the policies that we have, implementation, we haven't done well on that front. For example, I can cite the National Lands Policy, which when it was enacted in 2021, we applauded over a few provisions that came out. For example, that's where we saw the 50% allocation of all land to women, and we say that was very good affirmative law. We also saw 20% allocation of all land to the youth, and we commended that as progressive. Fast forward 2025, that policy was enacted in 2021. How much land, what proportion of land have we allocated to women? At the most, we have only gone up to 35. That's what has been recorded. So we have a good policy in place. Implementation, we are underachieving.
What causes this deficiency with implementation?
I think before we get there, let me just also paint a picture of the allocation of land to the youth.
Sure.
For the youth, the percentage was 20%. How much percentage have we achieved? 0% to the youth. Okay, now we are scratching our heads. Okay, we were crying for this allocation. Let's see, have allocation, affirmative allocation of land to women 50%, 20% to the youth. But when this has been achieved, when this policy has been put in place, what is achievement? We are failing to reach those targets. And I must say that I cannot say exactly what the barriers are. I can only speculate because we have not done a comprehensive survey or research to establish what the barriers are. But I can, from our work experience, I can actually cite maybe requirements of achieving this, acquiring this land. If you're going to acquire land, you are given a certain period in which to develop it, and that's 18 months. If you don't develop that land to an acceptable level within 18 months, it will actually be repossessed. So our take is that when we have this affirmative action for the youth. That affirmative action should not just end on a percentage. It should be extended, one, to the requirements. How much time do the youth require in order to develop the land? Should we also require that they do it within 18 months? Or because this is affirmative action, we need to extend it, give them a bit more time? And then there are also financial requirements. You cannot get the form for free. You need to pay for the form. You need to pay for a non-refundable application fee. Now, this is where the councils and the councils make a lot of money. They know they have 200 plots, okay? When they advertise, they collect non-refundable fees from 1,000 applicants. Okay, clearly those people are not all of them are going to get that money. So there are those non-refundable fees, which basically is just a fundraising venture for the authorities, for the local authorities. Should we subject the young people, the youth, should we subject the women to these non-refundable application fees? So I think we need to dig deeper into the systems and the requirements, and with comprehensive research, we'll be able to find what the barriers are. We also need to investigate the interest. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I was going to ask you whether you have applied for any land. I'm not sure whether you fall within the bracket of the youth, because sometimes we could be making noise for the youth. We want the youth to own land, and yet have we seen the interest in land by the youth themselves? We need to interrogate that as well.
From your view, is there interest from the youth? Or are they waiting until they're past 35?
I guess the priorities right now could be, most of them is education, and I think with the CDF that has come in and is promoting entrepreneurship, is promoting skills training. Probably they're focusing more on skills than acquiring the land. But my advice would be acquire the land, get the skills so that you can come and use on the land.
Is that contractual age moving from 21 back to 18?
According to the policy,
right,
the contractual age has also moved down from 21 to 18.
Has there been any impact after that?
No impact, because according to the statistics coming from government, we have recorded zero allocation of land percentage-wise. Now, that's not to say no plots have been allocated, but expressed in percentage out of the total land allocated, it doesn't make a mark at all.
Where have we gone wrong with this? Because there's opportunities for land here, and the government has made a deliberate, push towards young people acquiring land, even going as far as saying you don't have to be 21 to have land.
Exactly.
You just have to be 18 and be Zambian.
Exactly.
But there's no movement, and you're talking about 0%. That's quite an alarming statistic.
Very alarming indeed. Very alarming indeed. I think we need, especially those of us that have been advocating for the land rights of the youth, we need to search some soul searching to look at are they really interested in land, or have we sufficiently engaged them? Probably we haven't sensitized them enough. But of course, we must also say that a large chunk of them are in school, they're in universities, they're in tertiary other institutions. Probably that's their current focus, but all the same, we still need to engage them so that those that are out of school can take an interest in land and acquire land. Because talk about entrepreneurship, agribusiness is a huge entrepreneurial opportunity which they can take as part of business for them.
Okay, and just back to the policy, it does. And you talked about awareness there. The policy clearly talks about awareness campaigns. Has there been enough there? Have there been enough resources to make people aware of some of the things that we're talking about here?
I don't think so. Actually, I don't think so. I'm not sure how many government institutions have made the effort, including the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources themselves, who are the owners of this policy. I don't think they've done enough to sensitize, because I remember when this policy was adopted in May 2021, Zambia Land Alliance was one of the organizations that was on the ground lobbying and engaging stakeholders, asking them, make contributions, make submissions, come we have an engagement. So After the policy was enacted, we wanted to go back to provide feedback to all the stakeholders that we had engaged. Basically saying, we had engaged you over a policy, you made your submissions, and here is the outcome. So we went to the ministry. I personally went to the ministry to ask for copies of the policy so that we could help disseminate them, go back to all the communities where we had been and distribute and say, okay, this is now the policy, it's been enacted, this is what has come in, this is what the other submissions that you made are not adopted, but this is what has been adopted. Ask me how many copies I was given. I was given 20 copies by the Ministry of Lands. And I was so disappointed. We had to seek permission to reproduce and print our own copies. Gratefully, we were given permission and we had to print copies, which we used to disseminate and distribute to stakeholders.
Is that a lack of resources or just not interest in
doing
what the policy itself says they should do?
I think it's a lack of resources. So I would think it's lack of resources because when you look at the process itself, the process, though it is our own initiative, it is in our interest, it was being driven by donor funding. And I think that's where we have a problem. We develop a policy with our own priorities. This is what we want to do for our country, but we depend on outside partners to finance, to implement this. And I think that's not right. You know, it's like you come up with a very good budget for your family and you expect your neighbors to fund it. How will that work? You find that budget, no matter how good it is, will not be implemented. And I think that's the challenge. We have not allocated adequate resources. For example, right now, there are 2 programs that are running, funded by the European Union Commission in Zambia. One is land audit. The other one is land governance reform, the one that is looking at amending laws and so forth. It's being financed by the European Union. Now, it's good to have partners coming on board to support our interventions. We are in one global world. But our view is that must be supplementary. It should not be the only finances going in there. We need to allocate resources from our budget. And then the partners can come on to supplement what we are doing rather than us completely depending on international cooperating partners. So I think we have not done enough to allocate adequate resources to implement the policies that we are developing.
Okay. Now, if you just tuned in, our guest today is Mr. Patrick Musole. He is Executive Director at the Zambia Land Alliance. My name is Chishambambe. I am your host. Now, with all these issues that we've spoken about, how engaging has government been in addressing some of those challenges? And is the ministry listening to stakeholders such as the Zambia Land Alliance?
I must say yes. Actually, the ministry is quite open to engagement to us. We have reached out to the ministry on various issues. And I must say, have an open door. They have welcomed us, they've listened to us, but I think what remains to be seen is actualizing and implementing those suggestions that we are making. About a couple of months ago, I was here talking about the bill that was thrown out in the land registry, Deeds and Registry Amendment Bill that was thrown out. Our view is that is an important piece of legislation that we did not need to throw away, to shelve away. Yes, it had issues, it had problems, but the right thing to do was actually to work on address those issues, strengthening so that we can have it enacted because it could help us. So we have written to the ministry. Can we please bring back that? Take it for stakeholder consultations. Let's improve on the weaknesses so that we can strengthen it and so forth. We shouldn't throw it away. So that was received by the ministry, but we haven't seen action. So listening, yes, the ministry has actually been listening, especially to us as civil society organizations. But I think we are still waiting for action, to see action, our suggestions being put into action. That's what we are waiting for.
Okay. Let's talk about that issue of that dispute over land that's brewing at Musole, somewhere in Mikango Barracks. Give us some history to that issue and how it's affecting the people staying in that area.
Thank you, Cheshire. That land is historical. The history of that land is that during the liberation struggle of Rhodesia, southern Rhodesia, which is current Zimbabwe, Zambia was targeted by the imperial government there because we were supporting the freedom struggle of Zimbabwe, or of Rhodesia then. And so we used to get terrorists coming to bomb us, attacking us because we were supporting the freedom struggle. At that time, it was considered necessary to have a military base set up in the area we are talking about, Mikango Barracks. And so Her Royal Highness, Chieftainess Nkomesha, offered land to host military base there, which was done, and I think that went through a legal process and was documented as the military land. Now, fast forward, we are where we are now. The military has continued to operate in that area as their base, as a barracks, and then the chieftainess also still has claims over that, because according to the chiefdom, that land was given temporarily for the purpose at that time to host the military base because of the insecurity that was prevailing at the time. Now, what has happened is that the population in that area has increased because the number of people that were there then was smaller. With the time, they have produced more children and there are more people. Besides that, I think people from neighboring areas such as Bowlen Compound and other parts of Lusaka have also moved there. So there's a lot of pressure now on the land. There's a lot of pressure on the land to the extent that the military officials feel that the community which is exerting more pressure should not be there because it is military land. Now, the traditional authority and the head persons feel that the military is intimidating them, is stopping their development, is confiscating the building materials, and has taken their land because according to them, that is customary land. It's still customary land, although it was offered to the military. This matter has been to court, and I understand some consent judgments were reached, but on the ground, the issue has not been resolved. And that's where we are appealing to the Ministry of Lands, since it is this one government with the Ministry of Defense, to work together in addressing this issue. Because what we have in that area is that civilians are being threatened. Their land security is actually threatened. Their property rights are threatened when their blocks are being confiscated and being taken away because it is military land. Their concern, I was part of the team that listened to their grievances at the Ministry of Land. Their concern was that while the military says that it is military land, they are also seeing individual properties for military officials, private properties developing in the land. So they are asking, if this is indeed military land, how come we are seeing private properties also developing in the same area? So
is that true that's happening, or is that an assumption that's being made by those people?
I'm simply quoting what they reported. And that's why our call is, can we go on the ground and verify? Because that is a conflict that is happening between the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and the Ministry of Defense. We need government to put together an independent inquiry of stakeholders to go on the ground, look at what is the legal status of this land. Is it true that it is still customary land, or is it state land? Now, If it is a farm, as it is quoted, then it means it is state land, it's on title. And according to the laws of this country, once land is put on title, we don't have a pathway of reverting it back to customary. Once you convert land, you cannot take it back to customary tenure. We don't have a legal pathway for reverting it to its original status. Unfortunately, that's the status. So we need to investigate and find out the true status, because what those people are saying, those are claims from one side. We need to hear from the other side. We need to hear it from the military. We need to examine what documents are in place, are available, to check those documents, and then make proper recommendations for ensuring that there is peace